Hello students, this video is for 7th standard science chapter first, that is your nutrition in plants. So let's start it. Right, and it's part first for that. Right, so when we are studying or talking about the nutrition, basically we know that it is not only the process in which we are just eating the food. It basically means when we are eating the food, how it is getting transported and doing the different functions, that is of giving energy, and apart from that the other processes involved. So nutrition basically means not only the intake of food, like after that how it is being used for getting energy or the different type of functions. So if I'm in this chapter, basically we'll be specifically talking about the plants. So before talking about nutrition, we need to understand when we are going talking about the process of nutrition, you can say like in this process nutrients, basically the chemicals which are present in the food, are being integrated in our body, and they are different type of nutrients like vitamins, fats, carbohydrates, proteins, etc. So it's basically the process of ingestion also, you can say. Right, now nutrition basically is of two types, right? It is can be of autotropic type or it can be of heterotopic type. And when splitting the word, we can say like auto means basically means self-feeding, and the other means heterotropic means to by feeding by depending on the others. So autotropic nutrition basically means like if an organism is not dependent on another organism for the food, and hetero means sometimes the cases when which an organism will be depending on the other organism for the food. So if I'm talking about the plants, basically they are the one which will be having the autotropic mode of nutrition, right? And the uh, cause they are having autotropic mode of nutrition, they are also called as the autotrophs. Right, now when I'm talking about the plants, they're able to make their own food by themselves. So they need to have certain sort of raw materials together for making their food. And what are those raw materials? Those are basically your carbohydrates, sorry, my mistake, carbon dioxide. Then they need sunlight, they need water, and minerals, certain minerals. So these are basically the raw materials, right? And they're also called as the producers, as you've studied in the previous classes. So the process by which they actually make up the food is called as photosynthesis. That is nothing but the utilization of you can say carbon dioxide, water, and sunlight, and finally preparing their food, that is your glucose, is nothing but the photosynthesis. Now you would have seen like most of the plant, 95 or 90% of the plants are basically having green color leaves, right? And this green color basically is the cause of a specific pigment, a coloring substance, you can say, or a chemical, which gives them this characteristic color. And the work or the function of this pigment is not only to give the color, specific color, to the leaves of the plant. Apart from that, it also helps in trapping the sunlight. The sunlight, the one that is we are getting, the plants would be getting from the sun. It also enables like plants to trap the sunlight, right? And what happens is like sunlight will be basically coming from the sun, you know that, and chlorophyll is helping in trapping it in the plant. Then carbon dioxide is basically taken from the atmosphere, right? And as far as water and minerals are concerned, they are taken from the with the help of roots from the soil itself, right? And what happens like finally when they make up their food, they make the food, the end product of this chemical process, that is photosynthesis, is glucose. And this glucose will be formed continuously in the plants. So what happens is glucose molecules will combine together to form a single molecule of a starch, right? So starch is the form that is basically in which they are storing their food, right? And glucose is the end product of photosynthesis. Moreover, one of the same thing, but it's like photosynthesis होगा तो glucose बनेगा. Glucose के different molecules will combine together to form a starch molecule, and starch is the form in which the plants are storing their food in themselves, right? And we have seen this basically the representation of what exactly is happening. Like you can say carbon dioxide is combining with water in presence of sunlight, and your glucose and oxygen, which is not required, like for plants it is not basically required, so that will be given out. That's why we say like plants are basically the sources of oxygen. Now it is not only the photosynthesis, by this they are able to make the food apart from themselves, but apart from that they are also performing an important function of balancing the level of carbon dioxide and oxygen in our nature, right? The level, the ratio of carbon dioxide and oxygen should be proper, like because all the like almost all the organisms, like they depend they require oxygen for their survival, right? So this level is basically maintained by that, right? And we have seen this, there's a specific type of activity that we studied in the sixth classes also, right? Where we are doing the presence of starch. Like if we have to find out if we are able to show somehow that a leaf is containing starch, that will be an indication कि उसके अंदर photosynthesis हुई है. So what we do basically, we take a test tube, and we put some alcohol in that, which is a chemical and which is highly inflammable actually. And we put the green leaf in that, and we cannot heat the alcohol directly because it is very highly inflammable, बहुत जल्दी आग पकड़ेगा. So we go for indirect heating. So what we do exactly, we'll hold the test tube and we'll put it in a jar, and after that we'll put that some water and we'll start heating it. So first it's like your water will get heated, then your alcohol will get heated, and after that heating process is done, basically the chlorophyll which is present in the leaf will be coming out will come out actually. So color leaf will become colorless. And after that, if I'm using some iodine solution की अगर मैं drop एक दो पत्ती पे डालता हूँ, तो there will be change in the color of like it will turn to your you can say bluish or blackish. And if there is a bluish or blackish color, that is an indication कि उसके अंदर क्या present है, starch present है. And the presence of starch will give you a hint कि यार उस leaf के अंदर क्या हुई है आपकी chlorophyll, उसके आपके अंदर आपकी photosynthesis आपकी हुई हुई है, right? Now there comes a certain question that you might ask, like there are certain type of garden plants which are not having green color leaves, तो वहाँ पे photosynthesis कैसे होगा, right? Correct, right? As we say, like green color is because of the presence of chlorophyll, but in the plants which are not basically of green color in nature, they are colorful exactly, you can say, right? There are certain other type of chemicals are present. You can say, right, like red algae are there. Then we'll be studying brown algae is there. Apart from some like colorful plants or gardening plants, they have other chemicals like phycobilins or carotenoids. They are the chemicals which will be performing the same type of function, but instead of chlorophyll exactly. Right now, what are the conditions? We know that conditions basically the raw materials. So we will study one by one. First is your sunlight, and sunlight is basically we can say is like ultimate source of all the energy that we are that is present on the earth. Right now, to show that sunlight is important for the plant to carry out the photosynthesis, we have a simple activity. Right, what we do exactly is like right, first we'll need to discharge a plant. And by discharging basically means what, like I'll take a plant, पूरा plant लेंगे और potted plant होगा basically, and we'll keep it in a dark room where there is no light available for 2 to 3 days. So what will happen, like जो भी थोड़ा बहुत starch present होगा leaves के अंदर, that will be consumed by the plants, and there won't be any starch. So basically the process by which you are able to remove the starch in the leaves of the plant is called as discharging. Then what will I do? I'll use a stencil, basically a covering portion, as you can see in the screen. Right, I'll use a foil stencil, and I'll cover a portion of leaf. Right, and after covering it, I'll put this plant in sunlight for 6 to 7 hours. Right, okay, then I'll plug that specific leaf on which I have covered this stencil, and I'll be putting it I'll be making it go through the iodine test, like I'll be heating it with alcohol, then again putting it in water, then that will become decolorized, and after that I'll put up some starch. And after putting up starch, you can see, right, the portion of the leaf which was not covered with the stencil would actually turn to blue and blackish. यानी कि जहाँ जहाँ पे आपका कवर नहीं कर रखा है वो ब्लूइश या ब्लैकिश कलर की हो जाएगी. दैट मीन्स कि उस पार्ट के अंदर सनलाइट के जाने के कारण फोटोसिंथेसिस हुई है, बट जो पोर्शन आपने कवर करके रखा होगा उसके अंदर आपकी फोटोसिंथेसिस नहीं हुई है. So this was basically the activity for showing the importance of, you can say, the requirement of sunlight for plants for the process of photosynthesis. Now, second condition that we have is like chlorophyll. Chlorophyll, we know that like how where now key this is basically the coloring pigment, that specific green color coloring pigment, but how it is present, where it is present. Like so, we'll study in the later classes, like 10th or 11th, we'll study the structure of leaf properly. So basically, I can tell you that there are small, very tiny structures called as chloroplast, which are present in the leaves of the plant, and in those actually the chlorophyll is present, right? Now इसका काम हमें पता है कि क्या करता है, sunlight को trap करता है. Now to show that chlorophyll is important too for carrying out photosynthesis, like it is basically the one which is trapping, we have one more activity. But this time, what we need actually a leaf which is variegated in nature. And by variegated leaf, I mean something you can say which is having multicolor. लाइक ग्रीन के साथ साथ कुछ और कलर भी होना चाहिए. ग्रीन तो होना ही चाहिए, बट उसके साथ में कोई और दूसरा कलर भी होना चाहिए, वो अच्छा ऑप्शन रहेगा. सो यू कैन टेक मनी प्लांट विच इज क्वाइट ओल्ड एनफ, जिसकी पत्तियां थोड़ी बाउंड्री बाउंड्री पे सफेद हो जाती हैं, एज यू कैन सी इन द डायग्राम. सो आई जस्ट आई नीड नॉट डू एनीथिंग, राइट. आई जस्ट टेक इट आउट एंड आई डू द आयोडीन टेस्ट. So you'll see the portion which was green in color, right, previously. जब आप क्योंकि आप डिकलराइज कर देंगे तो आपको पता नहीं लगेगा. So you can just take a snap of it or you can mark it on pencil and cover it with the later on जब आपने उसके ऊपर आयोडीन डाला हुआ है. So the portion which was green in color, that will become actually bluish or blackish in color. तो यानी कि जहाँ जहाँ पे ग्रीन कलर प्रेजेंट था वहाँ पे क्लोरोफिल प्रेजेंट थी आपकी, और वहाँ पे आपकी फोटोसिंथेसिस आपकी कैरी आउट हुई है, राइट. Now moving on to the third condition that we have is your carbon dioxide, to show that carbon dioxide is important. So what happens exactly on the ventral surface of the leaves, in I guess in 90% of the type of the plants, on the ventral surface, basically this is the dorsal, or you can say upper surface, this is the ventral. अगर मैं अपनी बात कर रहा हूँ तो मेरी पीछे वाली सरफेस जो है बॉडी की वो डॉर्सल है, आगे वाला पोर्शन मेरा वेंट्रल है. सो ऑन द लोअर सरफेस, और यू कैन से ऑन द वेंट्रल सरफेस, देयर आर माइन्यूट पोर्स व्हिच आर प्रेजेंट, राइट. बहुत छोटे छोटे छेद प्रेजेंट होते हैं, एंड दोस पोर्स आर कॉल्ड एज द स्टोमेटा. अगर मैं सिंगल की बात करूंगा तो आई यूज द वर्ड स्टोमा, बट इफ मेनी नंबर ऑफ देम आर देयर देन आई विल कॉल द वर्ड स्टोमेटा, राइट. So they are present, right, and they are helpful for respiration, cause plants में respiration होती है, and also for the exchange of gases. आपको पता है कि कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड लेनी है और ऑक्सीजन आपका बाहर जाना है. तो right, as you can see in this diagram, stomata are present here, and if you have to look more closely, this is the closed stomata. Basically, the stomata, this hole exactly is covered by the help of two cells, and those cells are called as the guard cells. So these guard cells will actually they depend upon the level of water inside them. They either shrink or they will swell. Right, when they are swollen enough, they will close, and when they are shrink, actually they'll open. So right, something like that. So they guard cells actually monitor, you can say, control the functioning of opening or closing of stomata, through which carbon dioxide can go in or oxygen can come out. Right, now to show that carbon dioxide is important for photosynthesis, we have one more activity, and what we do exactly is like uh, first we need to have a discharge a plant, like एक plant को discharge कर लीजिए, like by keeping it in the dark room for 2 to 3 days. Then after that, what you will do, like before putting it in sunlight, you will just take a particular leaf and you will put it in a conical flask. अब plant की leaf को तोड़ेंगे नहीं, but make sure that arrangement is somehow fixed, like कि plant के साथ leaf चिपकी हुई है आपकी, and in that leaf उस लीफ को अपनी conical flask के अंदर डालिए, which is covered, right, with a proper आपका cork से cover है. And in that conical flask, what you have put some chemical, that is your uh, soda lime is nothing but your sodium hydroxide, which is, or you can say potassium hydroxide, right? A chemical you have put. Soda lime is basically sodium hydroxide, but you can use potassium hydroxide also. So what you do exactly, then after doing this setup, you put the plant in sunlight for 6 to 7 hours. Then after that, what you will do, आप क्या करेंगे, इस conical flask को निकाल लेंगे, and you will take out this specific leaf, and you will take some other leaf also, right? अगर आप दूसरी लीफ में अगर आप आयोडीन टेस्ट करेंगे, यू विल सी कि वो कलर आपका चेंज हो रहा है ब्लूइश ब्लैकिश कलर में. बट दिस लीफ what will do exactly, it won't change show any color, it will show कि मतलब इसके अंदर स्टार्च नहीं होगा और इसके अंदर कोई फोटोसिंथेसिस कैरी आउट नहीं हुई है बेसिकली. तो रीजन फॉर दैट इज वेरी सिंपल, बेसिकली द केमिकल दैट वी हैव यूज्ड, अपना सोडा लाइम, सोडियम हाइड्रोक्साइड या फिर पोटेशियम हाइड्रोक्साइड, दैट विल अब्जॉर्ब ऑल द CO2 which was present in the conical flask. राइट, जितना भी कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड प्रेजेंट होगा, तो बेसिकली इसको सब कुछ मिल रहा है, सनलाइट मिल रहा है, वाटर मिल रहा है, धूप मिल रही है, कोई दिक्कत नहीं आ रही है, बट कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड ना मिलने के कारण अपना खाना ही नहीं बना पाएगी. Right, then moving on to the last are like your water and minerals, which are the final condition for the requirement of for making the food of the plants. And what happens is like from the soil, basically those things are coming. So what happens is like the roots will absorb water and mineral, and from there it has to go to the leaves. So there is a network like structure, different tissues are there, pipe like tissues are there, and those tissues are called as xylem. It's like a group of cells which are having a similar type of function, are called as tissues. Cell एक के ऊपर एक लगे रहेंगे, and from roots it will go to the leaves, and everything has to go to the leaves because leaves are the sites where exactly the photosynthesis is happening. That's why they are also called as the food factory of the plants, right? So remember the tissue, that is xylem, which is responsible for the conduction of water in the plants, right? Now moving on to the heterotopic mode of nutrition, if you are going right, there are certain type of plants which don't show your autotropic mode of nutrition, right? And those exceptions we'll see, right? And those will come under the category of heterotropic, very minor section of plants is basically heterotropic in nature, like monotropa and cascuta. So these plants are basically having heterotropic mode of nutrition. So we have divided them into different type of categories. The first one is your parasitic plants, which is something similar to the one that we studied in the sixth class, parasitic animal. So what happens is like in this, a plant will be there, which will be like taking its or getting its nutrition from the other plant on which it has grown. एक प्लांट दूसरे प्लांट के ऊपर हो जाएगा और वहीं से अपनी न्यूट्रिशन को लेगा. एंड दिस प्लांट विल बी कॉल्ड एज अ पैरासाइट प्लांट, एंड फ्रॉम द वन व्हिच इट इज टेकिंग इट्स न्यूट्रिएंट्स इज कॉल्ड एज अ होस्ट प्लांट. सो बेसिकली कस्कुटा एक टहनी येलोइश कलर की लीव्स होती हैं, प्लांट्स के ऊपर ही उग जाती हैं, हर प्लांट के ऊपर नहीं होते हैं, राइट? कुछ भी प्लांट्स के ऊपर ही होती हैं, एंड दे टेक nutrition from there. And apart from that, we have Rafflesia, the example of parasitic plant. And why Rafflesia is important, it is like again the world's biggest flower, जिसे हम like normally आप सोच सकते हैं, it is a दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा फ्लावर होता है. Rafflesia normally found in the forest of Malaysia, sorry. So basically it is again a parasitic plant. Now there is comes a separate category of partial parasitic. Partial का मतलब क्या है, कुछ कुछ, ये पूरी तरीके से डिपेंडेंट नहीं होते हैं. अगर मैं बात कर रहा हूँ कंप्लीट पैरासाइटिक प्लांट की, तो फॉर एवरीथिंग इट इज डिपेंडेंट ऑन द होस्ट प्लांट. बट पार्शियल पैरासाइटिक, हाउ व्हाट दे डू एक्चुअली, लाइक एग्जांपल मिस्टल, राइट? दे प्रिपेयर देयर फूड, खाना तो अपने आप बना सकते हैं, बट व्हाट हैपेंस लाइक दे नीड टू गेट द रॉ मटेरियल्स फॉर मेकिंग द फूड, एंड दैट दे आर ऑब्टेनिंग फ्रॉम द अदर प्लांट. लाइक न्यूट्रिशन, अपने न्यूट्रिएंट्स दूसरे से लेके खाना अपने आप बना रहे हैं, मतलब जो भी इनकी रॉ मटेरियल है दूसरे प्लांट से लेंगे, बिकॉज खाली ये लोग रॉ मटेरियल्स को ले रहे हैं, खाना अपने आप बना रहे हैं, इनको हम लोग बोलते हैं पार्शियल पैरासाइटिक प्लांट्स. Then comes the next category, that is your insectivorous plants. So insectivorous plants, the first thing that you have to remember is like ये कहाँ पर होते हैं, कहीं स्पेसिफिक जगह पे ही होते होंगे, राइट? लाइक देयर डिफरेंट टाइप ऑफ केमिकल्स विच आर प्रेजेंट इन द सॉइल, राइट? फॉर एग्जांपल, ओके, व्हाट इज दिस? right? There are different type of chemicals which are present in the plant and which will be the soil basically which will be required by the plants. So basically they grow in a region जहाँ पे आपकी soil में nitrogen की कमी होती है. So if a soil which is having a deficiency of nitrogen, there exactly these plants will be found. And what they do, the reason for नाम से clear है कि insectivorous and they will be feeding upon insects. So reason for the consumption of insects is simple कि भाई अपनी nitrogen की कमी को पूरा करने के लिए insects को खाते हैं, right? चलिए, and this type of nutrition is the nutrition that they show is holozoic type of nutrition. Holozoic is something that we'll be studying in the 10th standard, and basically means like proper ingestion, then digestion, then excretion. Everything will be shown. Even humans have holozoic type of nutrition, right? There are certain examples which has been given like Venus flytrap and pitcher plant. So we'll study about the pitcher plant. Pitcher का मतलब क्या होता है? मटका, you can say, like, or you can say bag like structure. So in this pitcher plant, basically the leaves of the plant, जो पत्तियां होती हैं, they form a bag like structure. You can say sac like structure or thella जैसे structure बना लेते हैं. And the tip of the leaf, जो leaf का end portion होगा, that will acting as a lid. यानी एक थैला होगा, उसके ऊपर एक ढक्कन होगा, राइट? सो दिस द पूरी लीफ बनाएगी आपका बैग लाइक स्ट्रक्चर. उसका जो पोर्शन होगा, टिप का पोर्शन होगा, वो क्या बनेगा? उसका कवरिंग पोर्शन बनेगा आपका, कवर करने वाला पोर्शन बनेगा आपका, राइट? फिर सिंपल वही बात है, उसके अंदर हेयर्स प्रेजेंट है, इंसेक्ट विल गो एंड दे विल फीड अपॉन दैट, राइट? So this is the modification. So remember that in pitcher plant basically the eating up of this insect is being done with the help of leaves which have modified it to a pitcher like structure. Then comes your saprophytic plants. So as far as saprophytic plants are concerned, they are very simple, right? They obtain their nutrition from the dead plants and animals. Basically they feed upon the organic matter by secreting some juices which will help in the digestion of those things. And when they are have converted into some simple forms, they can these plants can directly absorb the nutrients from those things, right? So example is monotropa. And the bread mold. Bread mold basically is a fungi, if I'm talking about. तो फंजाई की अगर मैं बात करूँ, फंजाई ब्रेड मोल्ड, फंजाई क्या होता है? ब्रेड मोल्ड का मतलब ये भी आप कह सकते हैं कि इफ़ यू हैव गॉट अ ब्रेड एट योर हाउस और आपने कहीं 4-5 दिन तक के लिए आपने खुले में रख दी है, राइट? तो आपने देखा होगा उसकी वजह फफूंदी जम जाती है. जो द वर्ड दैट वी यूज इज नथिंग बट अ ब्रेड मोल्ड, जो कि फंगाई का टाइप होता है. नाउ कम्स द लास्ट थिंग दैट इज योर symbiotic plants. So if I'm talking about symbiotic plants, symbiotic का मतलब होता है basically a relationship. So for relationship there are two types, two people should be, two people are required, or you can say two organisms are required. So it's a relationship in which two organisms, or at least two organisms should be there, and both of them are supporting each other. थोड़ा काम ये करेगा, थोड़ा काम वो करेगा, दोनों मिलके साथ में खुश खुश रहेंगे. That means you're symbiotic. So one example, classical example of that is your lichen. And lichen is something which is formed by the association of lichen. तो अपने एक symbiotic relationship का एक example है. इसके अंदर कौन कौन से ऑर्गेनिज्म है? एक तो होता है हमारा एल्गाई और दूसरा होता है हमारा फंजाई. अब एल्गाई जो होता है वो ऑटोट्रॉपिक होता है नेचर में, और फंजाई जो होता है वो क्या होता है? सेप्रोफाइटिक. तो यहाँ पे काम कैसे चलता है कि फंजाई क्या करता है बेटा, जो न्यूट्रिएंट्स वगैरह होते हैं, भाई पानी हो गया, पानी के साथ साथ जो भी बाकी चीज़ें होंगी रिक्वायर्ड होंगी, तो पानी और मिनरल्स की बात करता हूँ, तो फंजाई पानी और मिनरल्स लेके किसको देगा? एल्गाई को देगा. और एल्गाई क्या करेगा भाई? खाना बनाएगा, खाना बना के किसको देगा? फंजाई को देगा. तो एल्गाई रॉ मटेरियल्स दे रहा है और फंजाई खाना बना के दे रहा है इसको. तो दोनों एक दूसरे को सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं. एंड दिस एंटायर थिंग, एल्गाई एंड फंगी का जो रिलेशनशिप है, इसे हम लोग क्या बोलते हैं? लाइकेन. और जो किसका एग्जांपल है? आपका सिम्बायोटिक का, right? Then comes the last topic for this chapter, that is the symbiotic dissociation, how helps to replenish the soil. Now आपने एक सिंपल सी बात देखी होगी, राइट? इफ यू आर बिलोंगिंग टू अ फार्मर फैमिली, और यू नो एनी फ्रेंड हु इज रिलेटेड अ लिटिल बिट ऑफ डूइंग दिस एग्रीकल्चर टाइप ऑफ वर्क, तो आपने देखा होगी जब वो शुगर केन उगाते हैं, एज यू कैन सी इन योर लोकेलिटी, रूरल, अपने जो आसपास के एरिया काफ़ी अपने खेत देख रखे हैं, तो आपने देखा होगी अगर एक खेत में अगर गन्ना उग रहा है, तो इट्स नॉट लाइक एवरी ईयर इन दैट पोर्शन ऑफ लैंड दे आर ग्रोइंग शुगर केन ओनली. तो आप बार बार एक क्रॉप नहीं यूज़ करते हैं, राइट? व्हाट यू डू, आपको पता है कि अगर आप बार बार एक फसल इस्तेमाल ग्रो करेंगे, तो जो ज़मीन से रिक्वायर्ड आपके न्यूट्रिएंट्स होंगे वो क्या होंगे? कम हो जाएंगे, right? And basically there are different type of nutrients which are required by the plants for their growth, like phosphorus हो गया, पोटेशियम हो गया, नाइट्रोजन हो गया, राइट? अब यहाँ पे ये सिम्बायोटिक रिलेशनशिप आपकी मिट्टी की गुणवत्ता को कह सकते हैं कि न्यूट्रिएंट्स को कैसे बढ़ा रही है. तो आप समझिए, देखिए क्या होता है. बेसिकली देयर आर सर्टेन टाइप ऑफ बैक्टीरियाज, दोज आर कॉल्ड एज नाइट्रोजन फिक्सिंग बैक्टीरिया. उनका एक एग्जांपल होता है राइजोबियम, राइट? दे आर फाउंड इन द रूट नोड्यूल्स ऑफ द लेग्यूमिनियस प्लांट्स. अब लेग्यूमिनियस प्लांट्स क्या होते हैं? फलीदार पेड़ जो होते हैं, तो उनकी रूट्स में आपको ये वाले बैक्टीरिया मिलते हैं, राइट? अब ये क्या कर रहे हैं एक तरीके से, अब क्या करते हैं कि भाई नाइट्रोजन नेचर में तो बहुत सारी है, बट डायरेक्ट प्लांट्स उसको इस्तेमाल नहीं कर सकते हैं. इट हैज़ टू बी कन्वर्टेड इन सच ए फॉर्म दैट इट कैन बी यूज्ड बाय द प्लांट्स, राइट? तो ये राइजोबियम बैक्टीरिया क्या करते हैं भाई, लेके नाइट्रोजन से लेते हैं एटमॉस्फेयर से, उसे फिर नाइट्रेट से नाइट्राइट्स में कन्वर्ट करते हैं ताकि प्लांट्स इसे अब्जॉर्ब कर सकें. अब जब ये नाइट्रेट नाइट्राइट की फॉर्म होते हैं, कन्वर्ट करके मिट्टी में तो रखते होंगे ताकि प्लांट्स उसको अब्जॉर्ब कर सकें. तो अब देखिए, अब यहाँ पे पूरी पिक्चर समझ में आती है कि यार अगर आप देखा होगा कि फलीदार सब्जियां, अगर हम दाल की बात करें या सरसों की बात करें, मस्टर्ड की बात करें, सो इन बिटवीन लाइक एवरी मेन क्रॉप ऑफ शुगर केन you would have seen they'll grow some leguminous crop, and leguminous crop is called as फलीदार सब्जियां। फलीदार आपकी कोई भी पौधा हो सकता है। तो ये राइजोबियम बैक्टीरिया जो होता है ये लेग्यूमिनस प्लांट्स की रूट्स के पास मिलता है, रूट नोड्यूल्स में मिलता है। तो व्हाट इल डू, लाइक जब आपने एक बार गन्ना उगा दिया, फिर आप अगली बार उगाएंगे लेग्यूमिनस क्रॉप, सो दिस राइजोबियम बैक्टीरिया विल कम, इट विल कन्वर्ट द नाइट्रोजन इनटू नाइट्राइट्स, और नाइट्राइट्स जो कि मिट्टी में आ जाएगा, फ्रॉम देयर दिस प्लांट्स कैन आल्सो यूज। तो यहाँ पे रिलेशनशिप किसके बीच में हो रही है, लेग्यूमिनस प्लांट्स और राइजोबियम बैक्टीरिया के बीच में हो रही है। क्योंकि भाई राइजोबियम क्या कर रहा है, एक तरीके से नाइट्रोजन को एब्जॉर्बेबल फॉर्म में कन्वर्ट कर रहा है, और रहने की जगह कौन प्रोवाइड कर रहा है इनको, यहाँ पे इस बार इनको लेग्यूमिनस प्लांट्स प्रोवाइड कर रहे हैं। तो एक तरीके से मिट्टी में भी नाइट्रोजन की मात्रा काफी अच्छी हो जाएगी। फिर जब ये मस्टर्ड की क्रॉप हट जाएगी, दोबारा से आप मेन क्रॉप कर सकते हैं, ग्रो कर सकते हैं। सो दैट इज वाई दिस इज हाईली बेनिफिशियल फॉर द फार्मर्स, लाइक दो मेन क्रॉप के बीच में वो एक ना एक बार लेग्यूमिनस क्रॉप को लगाते हैं। तो आप क्लासिकल एग्जांपल समझना है, लाइक आप सरसों का उगाते हैं बेसिकली, अगर हम यहाँ पे बात करते हैं तो जब भी आप गन्ने की बात करेंगे, राइट, so in between every 2 times when a major crop is grown, in between we go for a leguminous crop. The reason is to get improve the fertility by planting leguminous crops, so that the rhizome bacteria will increase the amount of nitrites or nitrates which is absorbable form for the plants, right. Thank you.